for we have 2 items. And this is I1 means item number 1, item number 3, item number 4, and so on. So the first scan here to actually look at this is by looking at, first of all, how many of these transactions the same item has been bought in how many of these transactions. For example, the first scan, so the way that the query works is by doing different levels of scans. The first scan is to look at every transaction for example, for item number 1, how many times has it been bought? So if we look at this transaction list, item number 1 were bought twice, right? In transaction 1 and transaction 3. And then item number 2, 2 happened in transaction 2, 3, and 4, right? So 3 times. So after you do that for every single item, you can see how many times these items were bought in the 4 transaction we're talking about. So that means we will look at this and we are trying to look for associations with another item, right? So looking at this, we are going to remove transaction that has only 1 item appearance. Why is that? Why are we moving items that only appeared in 1 transaction? One only, it does not have another transaction it has, right? So at least this item need to be bought by 2 transactions to have this correlation, right? So that's why the 1 transaction got wiped out. So that's why you can see the item set here only have 1, 2, 3, and 5. It does not have item number 4. So item number 4, because it only appeared in 1 transaction, and obviously if it appeared in 1 transaction, you cannot see it in another transaction. That means it will not be associated in that kind of sense. So you have now after the first scan, you can have this kind of a sort of frequency of a purchase for each item. So what to do next? The next is we're going to, first of all, associate these items with another item, because at the end of the day, we're trying to find other items that has been bought with this item together, and how many times that happens, and basically rank that. So if we have this, number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 5, and we can see from the initial transaction here, number 1 and number 2 has been seen bought together, and number 1 and number 3 has also been seen together. Number 1 and number 5 has been seen bought together, and in this case, we can see all of these possible sort of associations we have seen in the first transaction part, and now these combinations of 2 items will go through a second scan, means that we are going to look from the original transaction detail here, how many of these combinations has happened in the original transaction. So basically what we're doing here is lumping 2 items together as if it's 1 item, right? As if it's 1 item, like 1 and 2 is like a set. This set, how many times this set has happened in the original transaction, that would appear in the frequency part in the next part. So 1 and 2 as a set, how many times has it appeared? Once, twice, right? Oh no, once. This is the only one, number 3, right? So this is once, right? So similarly to number 1 and number 5 is also appearing once, right? So after that, and when we get to this stage, we thought, oh, okay, if that's the case, if I want to stop right here, we won't have to sort of move this out, because if we just want to find associations of 2 items, all of these will be sufficient, right? All of these, at least it happened once, isn't it? So what you need to do here is basically rank this for the highest frequency combination down to its lowest frequency, and then just say, if you bought this number 2, I'm gonna suggest number 5 to you, right? I'm going to suggest number 5 because it happened 3 times and it's the most frequently bought pair. And I'm going to suggest this one to you. And oh, if you don't like this, I'm going to suggest the next one up, right? So I'm basically going to suggest one after another frequency of based on the frequency of how often it's being bought. Now, but if you're not happy with this kind of just 2 items combination, then you move on, try to do a combination of 3 items bought together, because there is a possibility that more than 2 items can be bought together, right? So in a transaction, there can be more than 2 items bought together, or it can be more than 3 items bought together. So we're going to move on to the next part. If we are looking at the possibility of more than 1 item, more than 2 items bought together, then obviously, again, like the previous time when we looked at, we moved the row that has 1 item being spotted. Similarly, we are removing the row that has only 1 appearance of number 1 and number 2 items being bought together, right? Reason why this is the case is because we're going to add a 3rd item, right? If these 2 items are bought in one transaction, it is not possible to have another transaction that has the same set being bought because it only can appear once, right? So that's why the 1 is being taken out again. So the blue one here has been taken out. What is left is the 4 combinations here, which is going to appear in here. Now that we set up this, we are going to introduce a 3rd item into this, which in return, we can only find 1 situation because at the moment we have 1 and 3, 2 and 3, 2 and 5, 3 and 5, right? These 4 sets of combination actually happened, but because this, we have another possibility of 2, 3, and 5 being brought together, isn't it? Because 2, 3, and 5 brought together, 2, 3, and 5 brought together here, 2, 3, and 5 brought together here, and because we're associating 3 things, right? And another one that has 3 things brought together is 1, 3, and 4. And we have already eliminated the item number 4 here, isn't it? So that's why the only thing that is viable here is the 2, 3, and 5 item. So the more you'll find that the more item when you put into a set to see how many times it's being bought together, the more items you actually choose, the less likely that all 3 things are going to be bought together. Or even in the future, you may increase this to 4 items being bought together. It's going to be even less of a similar combination that happens more, right? Because it's easy to find 1 item being bought. It's not so hard to see 2 items being bought together of a certain combination. When you go to 3 items combination or even 4 items combination, this likelihood for things to actually happen is not so frequent. So that is the thing here. And so that is, as we carry on for the future, this scan will be done more and more if you have a need to combine more than 3 items in the future. So this doesn't just work for grocery store buying. It could be for other things. For example, people buy stuff from Lazada for more than 1 item, right? They can actually look for Shopee and then they sometimes buy more than 1 item. The thing about Shopee transaction is that only you pay to 1 company at a time, right? You may buy a lot of stuff, but you have to make payments to different companies separately, right? Hopefully sometime in the future this will not have to be the case, that things can actually be purchased at the same place. Maybe Shopee would actually do something like that, because at the moment one of the problem with buying stuff from Shopee is that maybe we bought one thing and then the postage is costing too much, right? Sometimes the postage is more than the actual item, which is so wrong. And sometimes I find 1 item and I have to go into to that shop to see if there's anything else I want, right? And the price may not be so competitive, but just because I want to get the free delivery, I have to buy another item, which is not right. But this is what I do. It's really hard when you want to buy a few things. It may be all sort of household stuff, but this one is cheaper and then this one is cheaper. If you buy from two places, you end up having to pay around 10 ringgit for a postage for both sides, right? Which is really a lot. And also, if you're thinking about it in that kind of point of view, in terms of Shopee transactions, we cannot really do the a priori or item to item based collaborative filtering very easily, because even though things are bought at the same time by one user, they don't really show up in terms of, like things are bought together. They just show up for different companies, right? It doesn't really go into one transaction kind of. If you The only thing that they could do is based on your entire sort of purchase history. Shopee can probably come up with what you can do in terms of, things that they suggest. But for a certain channel or a Shopee seller, they cannot suggest, because that's just not possible. You can only buy one or two items from one place at a time. That's, well, I guess, one of the shortcomings that can be improved in the future. But this is basically how a priori algorithm does. You don't really just have to have two items association, like what we just talked about in terms of Iron Man and Batman. In terms of movies, we can actually have more than two items being associated, or even three items or more. And I know some of you have already started typing in the priority codes already. I mean, this is actually the first time I come in here and I see all of you are actually typing. I was thinking, is somebody else teaching already? Somebody else already started teaching. Am I listening to this class? Oh, no, I'm the trainer. And then all of you are so diligent. I'm very impressed. All right, so you don't really have to do the pip install, right? Please don't type in pip install, because pip install works for things that's not been installed. If you retype it again, the reason why is because if you're that training, the one that teaches you how to install a priori onto your own PC at home. So if you have your own devices, then you may want to install it, because it's not the pre-installed stuff that you get from Anaconda. Remember I mentioned Anaconda pre-install some of the most popular packages, right? A priori is not one of those. And you need to install a priori prior to a priori. It's a rhyme thing. Okay, if you want to use it on your own PC or your own laptop, then you have to install the package beforehand. The same thing as later on when we use the SVD, we also need to do that, but you don't need to do that for the PC in this room, because it's already been installed for you. And another thing is that because these PCs have a sort of a guest account and local account, admin account kind of permission kind of problem. So if you try to install again onto this PC, sometimes it will give you an error. So let's not try to install it onto this one, because one thing is it's already being installed. Second is that you may cause an error. But if you're using it for your own laptop, you're totally okay in terms of installing it, because these are actually quite frequently used packages and they're not very dangerous. Not very dangerous, they're very safe. All right, so the state of the data set that you're going to be dealing with is the data set as a market basket. It's called market basket, right? And it has 7,500 grocery transactions, and it's from a European country. You will see from the transaction histories is that there's a lot of cream, light cream, pasta, cheese going on, which Malaysian diet does not have, right? Don't really buy cream sauce very much. And I think it's probably a European country that is mainly pasta-based kind of food diet preference. The motivation of this particular hands-on is to look for associations between items. So a priori is a package that helps you to deal with associations between items, which is perfect for this application. We are going to look for things that is mainly uh, associated with one another by using this a priori algorithm. Can I have a show of hand? How many of you have already typed out everything? Not everybody, yeah? Okay. Because I was thinking, if I'm going to talk through this one, you'll be bored. I feel very pressured. It's okay. All right, so in the beginning, as you know, this is the very basic libraries to import, right? So importing this library to begin with, let's import NumPy, Matplotlib, and Pandas. You know the gist. For those of you who have not opened up an account, you can do it now. Has all of you opened up